Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Friday. I hope you all have had a good week and are looking forward to the weekend. We're going to talk about substitutions today and specifically the Premier League's new rule. All Premier League clubs voted to have 5 substitutions instead of 3 substitutions, or to be able to use 5 substitutions instead of 3 substitutions, so to say, upon the return of the Premier League on the 17th of June. Premier League clubs will also be able to have 9 players on the bench as opposed to the previous 7. So there's been a lot of discussion about this on social media. There's been a lot of discussion about this in the footballing world as to whether it's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing, whether it'll help certain teams more than others. I think it will help certain teams more than others. I think if you've got the likes of your Manchester Cities, your Tottenhams, your Chelseas, your Liverpools, teams that genuinely have good quality players on their bench, players that would get into probably 50, 60, if not more, percent of the rest of the Premier League teams, it massively helps them that they can bring 5 of those players on as opposed to 3. For example, if Manchester City are 1-0 down against Burnley at the Etihad and they're struggling, they can just go and bang, Bernardo Silva, Leroy Sané, Gabriel Jesus, David Silva. They can just put a load of quality talent on that will probably be too much to blow the likes of a Burnley out the water. So it definitely does help the bigger teams. It probably doesn't help the smaller teams, let's be perfectly honest. Everton, for example, we struggle getting 3 decent players on our bench as it is. And I understand why it's being brought in. We'll talk about squad rotation and fitness of players in just a second. However, obviously, in our case, for example, if we've brought, the 3 decent players that are on the bench on, and then somebody else needs to come off, you're looking at a player that's either not very good or hasn't got much Premier League experience to come off the bench. So the rule probably does favour the bigger teams, the teams that have got that squad depth, the teams that have got that quality sitting on the bench. Ultimately, it's a new rule that's being put in place, which has sparked a lot of argument again on social media about the fact that the game isn't the same as it was prior to the suspension and prior to lockdown. And there's always been this discussion of, right, okay, football coming back when safe to do so is one thing, but football coming back under different circumstances with different rules and different things being changed is another thing. And there's a lot of people that are very disappointed with the fact that this change has had to be implemented, stating that football isn't the same, and why force to bring something back if you can't play the game in the way that we know and love. And obviously it's unclear whether this being able to use 5 substitutions will be a long-term thing or whether it'll just be for the remaining 9 games of the season, whilst obviously teams are going to be playing a lot of games in such a short period of time. Everton's fixtures for the first 3 games upon Project Restart were announced yesterday. Obviously we have Liverpool. We'll play Liverpool on Sunday the 21st of June at 7 p.m. The venue for that game is still to be decided. We'll then play Norwich on the 24th of June, so just 3 days later, and then on Wednesday the 1st of July we'll play Leicester. So literally only about a week or so between 3 games there, and that's why they've brought this rule in. They've brought this rule in because teams are going to be having to play multiple games a week, probably 3 games a week, whether it be Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, or it's some sort of schedule like that, like we've seen with the release fixtures from Everton. And therefore they've made the decision that giving teams the option to bring on 5 substitutions in a game rather than 3 substitutions will allow squad rotation to be a lot smoother and will allow players to be able to get enough game time as they need, but also enough rest as they need as well. And like I said, that'll work for a lot of the top teams with the big massive squads, and squads where they can have 9 players on the bench who are good Premier League quality players who are coming on, but you're going to have teams that are going to struggle to put 9 Premier League quality players on the bench, and you're probably going to see a lot of young players feeding in, not just through Everton's squad, but into other squads in the Premier League as well. And that's specifically what I want to talk about in this live stream. Is I want to talk about the impact that this rule change could have on the young players at Everton Football Club. Because prior to this lockdown, when Duncan Ferguson took over as temporary manager after Marco Silva's departure, and then ultimately when when Carlo Ancelotti took over. There's been a lot of discussion about, as to whether to sort of bred in some young players from the under-23s, and I think it's partly because we're at a point in the season now where we've not got a lot to fight for yet. Okay, we could still mathematically, get into a European position and finish in a European position, but realistically, I think a lot of Evertonians would be happy to allow certain young players to come into the squad and get the, their experience in and really, really nail their position down, and then sort of go again next season and try and find out which young players are good enough to play in this team. Obviously, you've got the likes of Anthony Gordon, who we've seen multiple times this season, but only in small sorts of bursts for 45 minutes here, 20 minutes here and there. We've seen him obviously come on against Leicester, I think it was, or I think he started against Leicester in the in the cup, the game that we lost on penalties. So Anthony Gordon's just one name that I've highlighted. You've also got the likes of Moise Kean, the likes of Jared Branthwaite, the likes of Ellis Sims. These are all players that probably wouldn't have got much game time under normal circumstances, with the other than Anthony Gordon, who obviously has been in and out the team and has been utilised off the bench by Carlo Ancelotti a couple of times, and Moise Kean, obviously, who was a first team player. The likes of Jared Branthwaite, Ellis Sims, any of the other young players in the under-23 squad wouldn't have got any game time this season, because there wouldn't have been a need for it. We wouldn't have been playing as many games in such a short period of time, and the players would have been at peak fitness, whereas now players are coming back into a competitive league with still a lot to play for. Yes, okay, there's not that much to play for from an Everton point of view, but for not a lot of other teams, there's still a lot to play for, and they'll be wanting to go out there and be putting in 10 out of 10 performances every single week. Certainly the teams that are in the sort of relegation battle, and certainly the teams that are fighting for the top four. And we probably wouldn't have seen the likes of a Jared Branthwaite or an Ellis Sims or maybe even an Anthony Gordon if it would have been under normal circumstances. I'm not necessarily saying that we're guaranteed to see these players now. What I'm saying is that there's more of a chance that we'll see these players now, and this is a big opportunity for the young players of Everton Football Club to sit in training now with Carlo Ancelotti. Anthony Gordon's a player that I've really admired over this period of the lockdown and the football suspension, if you like, because a little bit like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I keep seeing these training videos of Anthony Gordon propping up left, right and centre, of him running, of him controlling the ball, of, there's one where he's got his top off and he looks absolutely ripped to shit. I keep seeing these clips that show me that he's got a very good work ethic, and he's getting his head down and he's working hard, and his ambition is to break into the first team of Everton Football Club and ultimately to play consistent football in the Premier League. And I think this is a big opportunity for the likes of an Anthony Gordon now, because Carlo Ancelotti is going to need to utilise every single member of his squad. Now, there's not been a decision made on whether the likes of Martin Stecklenburg, Hugo Martina, Oumar Niasse will have their contracts extended for the remainder of the Premier League season. If they don't, then they obviously won't be playing. There's obviously... there needs to be some form of agreement that the players can extend their contracts at least until the end of the season, and then we may be able to let them go, or ultimately they'll offer the new contract altogether. But it's a big opportunity for the likes of Anthony Gordon, and it's a big opportunity for players that haven't necessarily been in and around the first team before anyway. The likes of your Ellis Sims, the likes of your Jared Branthwaite. Jared Branthwaite is, obviously we brought him in last year, this summer, the summer just gone, sorry, or was it January? I think it might have been January just gone, actually, yeah, January, as a centre-back, a player that was going to slot into the under-23s, ultimately, learn his trade there, get his experience there, maybe go out on one or two loans, and then, obviously when you bring in any young player, the view is that they become a first team footballer, that they start to play week in, week out in the Premier League, like we've seen with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, like we've seen with many players in the past, Mason Holgate being one of them as well. Both players that we brought in, started in the under-23s, build their way up, and ultimately, we're playing Premier League football. And Jared Branthwaite is of a very similar situation, a player that we've brought in with the idea of him going into the under-23s, learning his trade a little bit, getting his experience, and then ultimately, whether it be going out on loan for the season, whether it be, playing in the under-23s for another season, ultimately the idea was that he will be, playing first team football for Everton at some point within the next, 3 to 5 years, let's say. This could be a big opportunity for Jared Branthwaite now to break into the first team, train with the first team, and get some game time as well, because at the end of the day, especially with Jared Branthwaite, he plays in a position that we're massively lacking, players in. Ultimately, he's a centre-half, and at the moment, we've only got Michael Keane and Mason Holgate who are currently fit. Obviously, Yerry Mina's having injury trouble, and we hope that Yerry Mina will be back, in order to finish the Premier League season. If not back for the first couple of games, we hope that he'll be back before the season ends. But ultimately, if I was a Jared Branthwaite now, I'd be looking at this going, well, hang on, if one of Michael Keane or Mason Holgate picks up an injury or a suspension, I'm probably the next in line to take over, or I should at least be making sure I'm the next in line to drop in and play in that sort of centre back role. And for me, I think that would be a lot of inspiration for the young players to get their heads down in training and work hard. I think, again, I'm not saying that any of these players that I mentioned, other than Moise Keane, because I think it's a cert that he'll play for the remainder 9 games of the season, but even the likes of Anthony Gordon, I think it's very, very likely that Anthony Gordon will have a big part to play for the remainder of the Premier League season, because like I said, there's the new substitution rule, which meaning you can make 5 substitutions. There's been times where Anthony Gordon's been one of the 3 substitutions that have been used, and there's been times that he's probably just missed out on it. So with 5 substitutions, I can almost guarantee that if a game isn't going our way, Anthony Gordon will be getting on the pitch. Like I said, his work ethic has seemed absolutely fantastic during the lockdown, during the period of suspension. And if he gets his head down and he works hard, it'll be a really, really, really big opportunity for Anthony Gordon to show what he's made of and show the talent that he has. And ultimately, for us as fans, listen, we're coming into a Premier League restart. We've got 9 games to go as Evertonians. Yes, like I said before, mathematically, there's a chance that we could break into Europe. There's a realistic push for Europe, but ultimately, I would have no problem with Anthony Gordon playing 5 of those 9 games, starting in 5 of those 9 games, and let's see what he can actually do, because ultimately you need to take the risk with young players. And I'm not saying Anthony Gordon's ready to be a Premier League footballer. Maybe he does need to go out on loan, maybe he does need to have that experience in the Championship or playing every week for a sort of lower Premier League club, but Carlo Ancelotti could say to Anthony Gordon, right, okay, you're starting here against Liverpool, you're coming in, we're going to play with you on one of the wings, show me what you've got effectively, and he could have an absolutely unbelievable game. Ancelotti might then say, right, okay, we'll take it out for the Norwich game a couple of days later, give you the rest, then you're back in against Leicester, and he has another fantastic game, and then we're sitting in at the end of the season, once every single game's been played, going, bloody hell, Anthony Gordon had a fantastic end of the season there, and he all of a sudden becomes in the plans for Carlo Ancelotti. And also Anthony Gordon playing in a position that we desperately need to strengthen in on that pitch. And I'm not saying that if he has a fantastic end to the season, that Marcel Brand should go, right, okay, we'll box that off. We don't need to buy an attacking creative midfielder now because we've found one in our youth development. But what I'm saying is it almost makes Marcel Brand's job a little bit easier, because he knows that he's got Anthony Gordon there that, obviously has stepped up and has been able to do it at that level. And again, on the flip side to that, which is also a positive, some people might see it as a negative, but it's also a positive. But if Anthony Gordon comes in and plays a lot of the remaining games, or ultimately is involved in a lot of the remaining games, and he doesn't seem up to it, and he seems a little bit off the pace, or he might not necessarily have the physique or the ability just yet, then we can go, right, okay, we've seen you in an extended stint in the Premier League and you've just not quite been there, so we're going to send you to a Premier League team that maybe is hovering around mid-table or maybe fighting relegation to go and get more experience, or we're going to send you to a top Championship team to go and get more experience. So it's a win-win either way, certainly for the likes of Anthony Gordon, and for the rest of the young players, it's a big opportunity for Moise Keane. Moise Keane's had an up and down season so far at Everton Football Club. He's had a season where both on and off the pitch he's had his issues. Again, it hasn't quite gone to plan, I don't think, for the player or for fans. A lot of us expected Moise Keane to hit the ground running and be a 10-15 goal a season striker. It hasn't quite worked for him, obviously, only scoring 1 goal for Everton. But again, this is a big opportunity, because there's no way that Richarlison and Dominic Calvert-Lewin can play every single one of the remaining 9 games together up front. Moise Keane is next in line to that striker position, and there is going to be a point, and it might even come within the first 3 fixtures that have been announced already, that Carlo Ancelotti looks and goes, right, okay, as good as Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison are up front, as well as they've been playing, as well as they've played all season, we're going to take Richarlison out, or we're going to take Calvert-Lewin out to give them a rest so that they're fit for the further game, rather than just wearing them out. And that's when Moise Keane has to take his opportunity and has to show what he can do. And again, I think that's massive for Moise Kean. I really, really do. I think he's a player that should have taken a lot of inspiration from this new rule and a lot of inspiration from the return of the Premier League, because Carlo Ancelotti, like I said before, is going to have to make absolutely every single use of his squad and of the 5 substitution rule as well. I'm one of these people that I don't necessarily think it will work as well for Everton as it will for most other clubs, but I don't think it'll work as badly for Everton as it will as most other clubs as well. I think we're probably sitting in the middle as to how well this new rule will work. I think the reason for that is because we've got the likes of Moise Kean, who can come off the bench, who would be coming off the bench anyway, but it gives more opportunities for your likes of your Anthony Gordons, your Jared Brandtwaite if needed, and maybe even your Ellis Sims. This will be an ideal time if he is ready enough for it for Carlo Ancelotti to go, right, to Ellis Sims, listen, even if you're not going to come on, even if you're not going to have much of an involvement, you're going to sit on the bench and you're going to get to sort of watch the game and how it works at a high level, and maybe even bringing him on in a couple of games. What's the harm if we're 2-0 up against Norwich per se? Not saying that we will be, but if we're 2-0 up against Norwich, what's the harm in bringing an Ellis Sims on for the last 10-15 minutes and seeing what he can do, seeing how hungry the player is? Because if you go to a 16-17-year-old Ellis Sims and you say, listen lad, you're on the bench this week against Norwich and you might even come on, imagine the hunger that he's going to have here and that, imagine the passion, imagine the desire, imagine how hard he is going to work. And I can imagine that, amongst all of the players at Finch Farm upon the return, I can imagine the younger players to be some of the most hungry, because they are anyway, because they're fighting for their opportunity to get in the first team. But now they've got an even bigger opportunity to get in the first team and to play Premier League games, because there's this new rule where you can make 5 substitutions, you can have 9 players on the bench, which is 2 extra players, and ultimately, have Everton got 9 Premier League quality proven players to sit on our bench? No, we haven't. So there is going to be youngsters on the bench. It's about which youngsters make the bench, and for those young players, it's about how hard they work to prove to Ancelotti that they deserve that chance and they deserve that opportunity. And then it's up to Ancelotti as a manager, which he will be able to do because he's one of the best managers at doing this, to sit down and give those opportunities to the young players and ultimately see how good they are and whether they can hold it up in the Premier League. And I think for the likes of Anthony Gordon and for the likes of Moise Kean, I think we'll see a lot of those 2 players upon the return of the Premier League, whether it be off the bench, whether it be starting. Again, Anthony Gordon's probably one of our most exciting midfielders, which, say what you like, I think it's a little bit worrying considering the fact he hasn't played an awful lot of games and he's still very, very young. But I'd rather Anthony Gordon be in that team ahead of a Gylfi Sigurdsson. I'd rather him be in that team ahead of an Alex Iwobi, ahead of a Theo Walcott, because I just think he's got more hunger. I think he's younger, he's got the legs, and he's got a lot of ability as well. If you've ever watched Anthony Gordon in the Everton under-23s, again, we spoke on Wednesday about the technical ability of a Leighton Baines, who even at his age now, and even though he mightn't have the legs, even though he mightn't have the stamina, Leighton Baines will always be able to put one in the top corner from 35 yards because he's got that technical ability. Not saying that Anthony Gordon's, got the same amount of technical ability or more than Leighton Baines, but he's definitely got that ability to hit a ball and strike it right into the top corner. He's very, very good technically. And like I said, I think it's a massive, massive opportunity. And okay, it's a new rule that's come in, and ultimately, listen, whether you agree with it or not, whether you agree with football coming back with new rules, or whether you think that if it can't be played in the way that it's usually played, then it shouldn't be played at all. Football is coming back, and it's coming back with this new rule, and ultimately every single team, or the majority of teams, have voted for this new rule, and I think it could really, really benefit Everton. Obviously, it's not going to benefit Everton as much as it'll benefit Manchester City, because Manchester City have got 5 Premier League quality players that can come off the bench at any time, that are good enough to probably play in most Premier League sides, probably start in most Premier League sides, but I still think it can benefit Everton, because I think it gives the youngsters a big opportunity now to not only be able to fight for a position on the bench and a possibility of getting into the first team or making a first team appearance, for the likes of Anthony Gordon now, and even Jared Brandtwaite, Moise Kean, potentially not as much Ellis Sims, but definitely the others named, and a lot of the other players in the under-23s. I've just picked out a select few there, and a lot of the other players in the under-23s. This isn't just a big opportunity to potentially sit on the bench and potentially get a Premier League cap. You're likely to get game time in the Premier League if you're working hard and if you're showing your quality, because we're going to need as many players as possible for the squad rotation and for the fitness of the rest of the team. You like to see your Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you like to see your Richarlisons, you like to see your Mason Allgate, you like to see your Andre Gomez. Those players are going to need to rest. There's not going to be a player for me well, there's certainly not going to be more than 3 players in this team that will play every single one of those 9 games because they just won't have the fitness to do it. And ultimately, Carlo Ancelotti's going to be wanting to keep it fresh and going to be wanting to change it up, pretty much every game to ensure the fitness remains and to ensure that, the players can get their rest time. Because again, like I said, we go into the Liverpool game with Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison up front, and then we look at Leicester and think, right, we want to win that game as well. We're probably going to have to make a change in those strike partnerships for the Norwich game, because a Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison going to be able to play 3 games in a week's time at that high level. I don't know. So let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Anyway, like I said, I've just picked out a few players there, and I wanted to speak positively about the change, about the new substitution rule, because I think it can benefit us, and I think it definitely can benefit the younger players in giving them that opportunity, more of an opportunity than what they usually would have. Really, really excited to see how the likes of Anthony Gordon are used when the Premier League returns. I really, really am, because I think we'll see a lot more of them, and I'm excited to see if he's got that quality. Some young players just do. Some young players come in and you can tell their Premier League quality straight away. Wayne Rooney done it, and again, Wayne Rooney was one of a kind, but Wayne Rooney was one of those players who stepped in at a very, very young age, and you just knew he was going to be world class. Ross Barkley, again, although we hate him, was a player that come in at a young age and was bossing Premier League midfields. He was embarrassing midfielders that had 5-10 years Premier League experience. Let's see if Anthony Gordon can do similar, and let's see at what level Anthony Gordon can be playing at, rather than just sort of him not getting a lot of game time and then in the summer saying, right, okay, well, we're probably going to loan him out anyway, but what happens if he's good enough to play in the Premier League? At least this gives Carlo Ancelotti and Marcel Brands the chance to actually see out of the youngsters who is good enough to be in and around that Premier League squad and playing Premier League football next year. Let's get into the live comments now. Anyway, Eugene says Everton hope for warm-up game and special session before Liverpool. Yes, Everton hope to play a friendly game next week at Finch Farm. I'm assuming that it'll probably be 11 versus 11 in terms of 22 Everton players playing on separate teams like we've seen multiple times before, but they hope to play a full 11v11 game prior to the Merseyside derby, obviously for fitness. CJ says, yes, Cam, yes, CJ, I hope you're well. Cal says, hey, Cam, I won't be on long, I have to go to the shops in a minute. No worries, mate, I hope you're well, Cal. If you're enjoying the stream, by the way, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe as well. Big thank you for all of the support on the channel recently. It means an absolute massive amount to me. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram as well. Those links are in the description below. Thank you very much. Eugene says, fixture reminder. Gord says, either way this season will show that clubs prefer money over the safety of their own players. Well, listen, I don't think anybody was under the illusion that football was a sport that money wasn't a priority in. I think for Premier League, I think for clubs, I think for organisations such as the Premier League, I think for leagues, money is the main driving force and money is the main priority ultimately. Yes, it's been highlighted a lot more now, but I think we all deep down knew that was the case, didn't we? Eugene says the Women's Super League cancelled. There has been. James says, alright lad, 5 subs, good idea, would be good for us with young lads having to play as well. Just got to manage the game right and rotate the lads to be an advantage for the manager. Tactics in the game for me, spot on. Hernandez says, I'm just worried for the rule change. We barely have a strong start 11, and I can imagine when we play the big clubs we have to prepare for essentially 2 different teams. Well, we do it, and that's going to be the issue, is that listen, it might be okay if we come up against the clubs that are struggling and we put out our top starting 11, and then ultimately let's say we're 2-0 up, 3-0 up example, and then we go, right, okay, we can put on a Branthwaite, we can put on an Anthony Gordon, maybe even an Ellis Sims, and we can give them a little bit of game time. But you're absolutely spot on. If we're 1-1 against Manchester City, or no, we've played Manchester City twice anyway, I don't know, we're 1-1 against Leicester, for example, and they turn around and you can bring in on 5 players that are a lot better than the 5 players that we can bring on, or for argument's sake, I don't know, City, I know we've played them twice, but let's say, and City can go and bring on practically half a team, teams are going to struggle in that way. But ultimately, again, I think for squad rotation and certainly for opportunities for young players, I think it's a positive. It's a negative in a lot of minds as well, because it's a change of a rule, which ultimately shouldn't really be changed, and again, it will benefit the top teams more than it'll benefit the lower teams, but there's a lot of rules in the Premier League that benefit the bigger teams more than they benefit the lower teams. Dave says, I really like Gordon, don't think he needs a loan either, he's good enough to be playing off the bench now. I actually agree. Stu says, any transfer rumours for Everton? There's been loads, Stu. We done the Talking Rubbish transfer show on Wednesday. If you want to check that out after this live stream, I'd really appreciate it. We talk about Alan as well as a couple of other players that have been linked with moves to Everton. There's a couple of links in the papers today regarding Godin as well. Very good centre-half, however he is getting on a little bit, getting towards the end of his career, but like I said, we covered a lot of transfer rumours over on that show. And Andy says, young players getting time is the only positive I can see from the rule change. I agree, to be honest with you, and squad rotation obviously. William says, hey Cam, hey guys, how's everyone doing? I'm not too bad, mate. And Andy says, hope all is well, Cam. I haven't said hey in a while. Thank you very much, mate. I'm not too bad, I hope you're well. Just ignore me here as well. It's absolutely mad. It needs cutting, it needs chopping. Just try and ignore it. You probably weren't even looking at it, and now that I've said it, you're going to look at it, but try and ignore it, please. James says, the young lads at Everton must be buzzing. Hope they take their chance, starting with Liverpool. Hopefully, mate, hopefully. Wayne says, Gordon needs to bulk up a bit, in my opinion. Maybe. He looks to have bulked up a little bit during the lockdown, which is a positive thing. Wayne says, hey Wayne, mate, hope you're doing well. Wayne says, Michael Keane starting enough to drive you to hit the bottom. We won't finish in the top half. No chance. Well, maybe we will, maybe we won't. But again, that's obviously for Carlo Ancelotti and Marcel Brands to look at. Wayne says, is the 5 subs going to stay? I think they should do it. It opens more tactical options without injury concerns, curtailing managers to ability to change games. Well, ultimately, it just means that clubs are going to need bigger squads, doesn't it? And, you know, listen, Everton are already a club with not that big of a squad. Certainly not a squad of good quality players, a big squad of good quality Premier League players. So we'll have to see if they keep it. I don't think they will. I think they might keep it for the start of next season if we know we're still in these strange times. But I think ultimately it will probably go back to 3 at some point in the future. Where are we then? 12 weeks time for the Premier League return. James says, perfect time for Carlo to know exactly what we need to improve the team for the start of next year. We have to push on next year. We do. Next season he needs. Wayne says, I'll be looking at giving Sims some game time and play him over Keane. Fair enough. Wayne says he until he does something to love him, I sure am. Stu says, Moise Keane is a proper manager. Everton will be far more cute in the transfer market. I assume you mean Ancelotti. James says, we all hope so, but I do like Dom and Richie. Midfield priority. Keane will go to Italy. I think midfield is the priority 100%. Stu says, Bernard seems to be a naturally fit, to be fair. Iwobi as well as an athletic guy. Same with Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison. I agree. Wayne says, would like Dom and Keane up front and Richie is the left. I like Dom. I like Richarlison up front. I think he's fantastic up front. I really do. I'd probably keep him there. Yeah, but listen, but ultimately, you know, I'm really interested to hear what everybody has to say about the new rule change. I'm really interested to hear everybody's opinions on it. Because I think it's interesting. I think, you know, a lot of people really seem to be annoyed by it. A lot of people really don't seem to have taken to it. And that's fair enough, and that's their opinion, and they're 100% entitled to that. I understand that it's a rule that very clearly tailors to the teams with bigger squads, and ultimately the teams with bigger squads are the top teams in the league because they've got the more quality, they've got the more money. And in regards to the lower teams and the teams battling with relegation, it's really not going to help them when they come up against the top teams because the top teams are going to have so much variety on the bench. But I think it's been put into place for squad rotation to ensure that players can remain fit, to ensure that managers can you know, keep their sides fit enough to play 3 games a week, because it's going to be an intense environment when football returns in terms of how many games, you know, the teams are playing and the players are playing. And in regards to Everton, yes, it doesn't favour us as much as it favours a Manchester City, because we haven't got 5 quality players to come off the bench that you know and will be confident with coming off the bench and making a change in a game. But we've got a lot of young players that we've been saying for a long time we'd like to see, and would like to see what they can bring, and would like to see if they're good enough. And I think this is a big opportunity for those players. If you're enjoying the team, by the way, please hit the like button. It does only take a second. Eugene says, our view of Everton bid £30 million for former fan favourite Adesina Gay. I don't think we have bid anything yet, mate. There's a lot of discussion there. Apparently 2 Premier League clubs are interested in Gay, but they've been unnamed. We'll have to wait and see, mate. We'll have to wait and see. He just says, I really hope he gives another keeper a go every now and then and again, as Pickford needs to learn. Again, I see your point, and listen, I'd like for us to have another goalkeeper that's good enough to play in the Premier League, but I just don't think Martin Stecklenburg isn't, and he'll leave at the end of the season. And I really don't think Jonas Lezel's good enough to battle Jordan Pickford. If we had a good, strong, solid secondary goalkeeper, backup goalkeeper, I'd be more than happy to see that goalkeeper be playing in Premier League games, more than happy to see him get his fair share of Premier League experience. But ultimately, it goes Jordan Pickford, and whatever you think about Jordan Pickford, whether you like him or not, it's Jordan Pickford, and then it's Jonas Lezel and Martin Stecklenburg down here. And like I said, whether you think Jordan Pickford's good enough or not, whether you like him or not, you cannot disagree that he is absolute years better than the two goalkeepers below him. And ultimately, until we have that competition for goalkeeper position, there's never going to be a change, is there, unless it's forced. Stu says, great point, I can't wait to see Everton with a proper complete DM. Me too. Abigail says, I think Markello, Adeniran, Gordon, Dobbin and Benny will get a chance. There you go. And another couple of young players there that have got a big opportunity now. And I think, again, I've named a few young players there, and I'm not saying that Gordon, Sims and Branthwaite are the only young players that have got an opportunity. Every single young player playing in that under-23 squad has now got an opportunity to impress Carlo Ancelotti and to ultimately to say to him, listen, I should be involved in the remaining 9 games of the season. I'm good enough. I've got the stamina, I've got the energy, I've got the passion, I've got the intensity, and I will ultimately change a game if I come off the bench, or I'm good enough to start a game of football as well. Listen, we know what we're going to get with a Fabian Delph, a Morgan Schneider, and a Gylfi Sigurdsson, a Theo Walcott. We know what we're going to get with those type of players. We don't necessarily know what we're going to get with an Anthony Gordon, D'Angelo Markello, Benny Beningame as much, and Ellis Sims. We don't know what we're going to get with the young players, and that's why I'd probably rather give those the experience than players that ultimately, you know, we've seen an awful lot before and haven't done an awful lot before. Stu says Pickford is terrible, doesn't command his area, and making a lot of saves with previous clubs was a false statistic, quality not quantity. But who have we got to replace him at the moment? And should we sign a goalkeeper? I don't think we should. I don't think it's a priority position, in my opinion. Whereas I think Pickford's the same, Stu, same as he was before, no progression, it's a problem, fair point. CG says calling it now, Dean and Richie won't start versus Norwich. They probably won't. And again, I wouldn't be opposed to that, because I'd rather Luca Dean and Richarlison to start against Liverpool and Leicester than to start against Norwich and not start against one of the other two teams. Rim says, don't think Pickle's going anywhere either way, as we have too many other positions in big and either fixed and spot on. He also says, I'm not a massive Grealish fan, there's a lot of hype. What he's actually done, I think he is Walcott is capable of 2 through balls. Fair point. Dubrovnik at Newcastle is a very good option, to be fair, but it's whether they would sell him to Everton. Wimmy says, whichever way the hype makes him overpriced, so often Man United with him. Abigail says, I hope we try and go for Gordon or a curveball Rugani from Juventus, as he looks to be surplus to requirements. Often an 18-month loan deal with 20 million redemption. He has won 1 league title with Juve. Very good choice, very good player. And then this says, if we had the chance to start super researching a conspiracy theory yet, don't understand when you have time, but good on you. I haven't, mate. I haven't, to be honest with you. I'm going to watch the Jeffrey Epstein documentary this weekend. There's been a new documentary put out on Netflix, I believe, about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff and all of that sort of is awful behaviour. So I'm going to watch that, and I might even do a little personal channel video off the back of that after I've watched it. I'm going to watch it this weekend. Wayne says can never have enough subs, especially how our players tend to drift in and out of games. Fair point. Abigail says I go for Foster or Forster. Ben Foster's an interesting option, obviously free at the end of the season, good Premier League experience goalkeeper. Always, I'm not a big fan of Ben Foster whenever he plays against Everton, because I just think he's time wasting every game, but he is a good experienced Premier League goalkeeper who would give a lot more competition to Jordan Pickford than the goalkeepers that we've currently got. Wayne says if we're going to get hyped by hype players, Adama, I assume you mean Traore. Wayne says we need 3 new keepers, fair point. Wayne says we need 4 keepers, Wayne, and play them all at the same time in the future. Mitchell says the Derby versus Liverpool kid showed you what these youngsters can do when given an opportunity. Spot on, Mitchell, exactly. Wayne says that wasn't a joke either, Cam. I don't believe it is. He says that Alan hype is getting boring now. And Eugene says I think Everton will beat Liverpool. I hope so, mate. I do hope so. Anyway, that's going to do it for this live stream. We're going to wrap it up there. If you have enjoyed, please do leave a like button. Please do get in the comments as well. I'll be interested to hear what you all think about the new 5 substitution rule. And do you agree with me? Do you think it'll massively help our youngsters? And if so, who can you see in that under-23 squad, or even in the first team squad, in terms of young players that could realistically get an opportunity when the Premier League returns and ultimately get some Premier League experience experience under their belt. Wormy says, watch the Prince Andrew BBC interview if you haven't, re-Epstein stuff. I will do. I think I seen it on the news a few months ago, but I'll watch it again. Big thanks for watching. If you're watching the live comments, a massive thank you for getting involved. Really do appreciate that. If you're watching as a YouTube video, don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below, and I'll be replying to as many of them as possible. Big thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the stream as well, don't forget to subscribe. Really do appreciate all of the support. We'll be back on Monday 5:15 PM for another Talking Rubbish transfer show. We'll be talking about the latest and greatest Everton transfer rumours, and we'll be ranking them on how true we believe them to be. Big thanks for watching.